are a rehab and rescue organization, so we basically take in injured and orphaned wildlife with the goal of rehabbing them to release. I love animals, I love caring for them, and I just get very excited for them to be able to be back into the wild and able to get all the natural things in their life. We have a full room inside of hawks, and then we also fill our flight pen here. I think at one point we had 7 Swainson's hawks in the same enclosure, so we get a lot of them in, and then we do have to match them with their migration. If they're injured, most of the time when we're able to capture hawks, it's because they have a wing injury, so they won't be able to feed themselves or they won't be able to fly at all, so they won't be able to migrate or match up with any of their flocks. So normally if an injured hawk is left alone and is able to be caught, then they would unfortunately die in the wild, so that's the major importance with getting them brought in. It's nice to get to bring them in even if they are too severely injured, because we just want to take them out of suffering as quickly as possible, or we're able to rehab them, which is nice. The main goal is raising things to release, and having a high standard of care is pretty much what the biggest thing is for us. We want to make sure that our raptors, as much as possible, are happy while they're here, even though they don't tend to like us. So it's even doing something like reducing their stress and only feeding them 1 time a day instead of multiple to kind of keep them away from people. Releasing them is always the goal. Well, excuse him. He's a bit he's quite aggressive, so we're hopefully moving him to a different enclosure. Our Swainson's hawk is in here. He will probably jump around a bit. Probably tuck him there. Even when we go to catch them, they'll flip on their backs and just go like this with their feet to try to grab you. Just because unlike other songbirds or anything like that, they have 2 methods of protection. They either can fly away or they can turn around and become extremely aggressive towards you. They're very sharp. They can actually we have some of our gloves here. So these ones and these ones, they can actually go through with how big their talons are. So these are just an extra protective if they do start to talon out at you, that you can remove your hand and hopefully they just catch you. We are very, very careful with them. This is our goshawk. He might jump at me, so if you want to come maybe right here. So we're in the new runway. It was just built this past winter, so we just got to use it for the first time this summer, which has been awesome. As you can tell, it's specialized for our birds of prey. So we have 5 separate enclosures. 2 of them connect, and then the other 3 also connect. And then our facilities team created these themselves. So these perches can actually be moved up and down, which makes it really easy for feeding. So we can place any mice or quail here, and then we can lift it up for them. So then we can do that way, and then if we're coming in and trying to capture them, because even though they're in this giant enclosure, we still have to get weight checks on them every once in a while. So we'll also drop all the perches down to help us catch them.
So these are specific nets for birds of prey, essentially?
They're not. They're actually fishing nets.
Oh.
Yeah, just this mesh is a rubber, so it doesn't hurt them, and they can't, their talons can't rip through it. So that's basically why we use these ones, is because they're good for their feathers, because anything smaller or thinner could harm their feathers, as well as they can't rip through them, so it lasts longer. But yeah, these are just giant fishing nets actually. But it's nice because about this size is the only thing that we would catch with these. We can't grab anything else, and normally with our birds of prey, because we don't want to injure their wings or anything, we actually just use these nets to chase them down to the ground. And then we can normally either net over top of them on the ground or towel them on the ground.
This is our goshawk x-ray. It's a pretty normal one. He just has head trauma and a tear in the back of his eye. But on it, we were looking at all of his bones and his internal organs. So his head's up here. This is his coelom, or his body cavity, his right wing and his left wing, and then his 2 legs are coming out, and you can see his tail down here. So we're making sure that there's no major fractures, concerns, anything like that, or areas of swelling on the x-ray, which his is pretty normal. You can see both wings are nice and symmetrical, and all the long bones are normal. And we also really want to look at their shoulders because they get a lot of shoulder fractures, and those are a little bit harder to find sometimes. This is just a lateral view, so when we flipped him on his side, this is kind of trying to get the center of his body, so we pull the wings and the legs out of the way, and then you can see more of the internal organs than you can when they're on their back. So this is his heart and his liver, and then his trachea is this kind of structure. You can see the rings of it coming down, and then his esophagus comes down here into his, they have two stomachs, the proventriculus and the ventriculus, and all his GI tract. But everything looks nice and normally sized there. You can see this black is air, so that's his air sac, which we want to see nice black regions. And then his lungs are this kind of like honeycomb pattern in the background, like little fine dots, which is normal also for him, which makes sense because the only thing we've found on him so far is head trauma. So fortunately, everything else looks good on him. And then this is just another view to look at his shoulders, which are normal, excitingly.
I started rehab with passerines and like songbirds, so I never really worked with birds of prey until 2 years ago. So I just think that they're really cool and they're really fun. I saw like a northern goshawk for the first time yesterday that we got in. I was just like nerding out over it. I love birds, so it was just really cool. I also just love how powerful they are. Like it's kind of exciting when you're like grabbing them and holding them just because they have so much fight in them. And one that we did just release, he came in as an adult and he would try to jump out of the cage and talon you. So it's just very fun doing them. They're very scary, but it's like in a fun way. I love it. I love all the animals and I love caring for them.